Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Becerra, thank you for being here. Before I make some comments or questions, I also want to recognize the Alzheimer's Association. You all were in my office, or the North Carolina delegation was in my office yesterday, and my staff had been meeting with them. I looked to my staff and said, are there any priorities that you all have discussed that we don't support? They said the answer is no. We support them all, including a Dear Colleague letter for funding for NIH. So you can count on my support. But the reason I did that is because I wanted to talk with them about something that should be on your agenda. And it relates to research, and it relates to prescription drug pricing. And I'll get to that in a minute, because I want to use a few examples. I know that we've had some members talk about the great advances, Secretary Becerra, in the Inflation Reduction Act. I think, based on patterns that I'm seeing in the industry, you could call it the Investment Reduction Act. And, Mr. Chairman, I have 3 documents that, without objection, I'd like to submit to the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
2 are related to Eli Lilly, 1 to another player in the pharmaceutical space that have said we're making business decisions to drop small molecule research and other things because the time that they would need to recover the investment they anticipate is not there. And so you can expect reductions in small molecule research. You can expect reductions in an eye drug that they were trying to expand. You can see the effects of not getting well-intended policy right. And Mr. Becerra, or Secretary Becerra, Congressman Becerra, I think the work that you did on a bipartisan basis, whether it was the 21st Century Cures bill, or even more importantly, the heat that you took from your side of the aisle to get trade promotion authority, tells me you're a person that likes to get to a positive end, a productive end. The only reason, the primary reason I didn't support your confirmation, though, in full disclosure, is the position you've taken on march-in rights. And so I'm not going to have enough time to get to many questions, but I think it needs to be said that I believe we're going about it the wrong way in terms of the haircut that needs to be done to get prescription prices lower, and not at a point in time, and not at the expense of other research and investment that's necessary. And I tell everybody in the industry, I believe that there's a haircut coming, but I haven't heard any member talk about who needs to be in the barbershop. And I think it needs to be pharma. I think it needs to be the pharmacy benefit managers. It needs to be the insurers. I just wrote this down as notes. The medical profession, the prescription, or the pharmacies, the FDA, and the legal community. If you're really going to fix the fundamental problems with drug pricing and look people in the eye and say you're doing something not just to claim victory, as it was done with the IRA, but something that's sustainable, every single one of them need to be, they're all a part of the value chain, they all need to be at the table, and we need to get it right. Because you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't seen a single successful, sustainable solution to this, or at least a part of the solution, except when Buy and Dole passed something not too long ago. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit for the record an op-ed that was written by Senators Buy and Dole in 2002 that said we never intended for their legislation to become weaponized.
Without objection, so ordered.
And in spite of the fact that the NIH has recently just rejected imposing price controls based on price, now we have a work group that's going to consider price as one of the ways that we go about getting down on this industry. If we do it, we're going to have a longer window for work, the very promising work that's been done for Alzheimer's. I've got a vested interest in that. I was a part-time caregiver to my grandmother. I got a vested interest in broader research. I've got 2 potentially deadly, one incurable and one curable disease in my body. One's prostate cancer, the other is Wegener's granulomas. Both of them are being managed. Prostate cancer has a lot of promise, provided that it's within that window. Wegener's is a rare disease. It's not going to be something that we're going to see a cure for, particularly if we don't get this right and incent the private sector to invest in things where they may have to walk away from it, like an Alzheimer's drug, after $1 billion of investment. And so I told the Alzheimer's Association, please study up on the attacks on intellectual property protections. Take a look at what the administration's done with TRIPS waivers and other things, really threatening the return on investment that these companies have to make. And please make sure that that's a part of your pitch when you come to these members of Congress, and expect them to produce a prescription drug pricing strategy that they can look you in the eye and say it's going to produce year-over-year results. Thank you for being here.
Senator Tillis, thank you for your point with respect to the nature of how pharmaceuticals, particularly as it relates to the regulatory system, have a breakdown at every step of the way. That's what Senator Grassley and I found in our mammoth research report. If anybody's having trouble sleeping tonight, you can go through the scores and scores of footnotes, and it starts with pharma, but it's the PBMs, it's the distributors, it's every step of the way.
And Mr. Chair, it's the FDA too. We learned so much. We learned so much from COVID, and we figured out how we could accelerate approvals under emergency use authorizations. The fact that we would have those snap back post-pandemic after they've been proven to work, to me, is meaning that we're not learning some of the good things that came from that stressor.
Your point is correct.